encountered if statements before. They come in real handy if you want to test for a condition before you execute some code. So, executing a code only when some condition is satisfied. Now, you might want, in many cases, to test for multiple different conditions. Say x is a variable. If x is less than 0, do something. If x is equal to 0, do something else. And if x is equal to 1, do something else. So you can test for multiple different conditions and do something different in each case. This can be done using the elif statement. The else statement here accounts for the case where none of the above conditions are met. Notice how we're checking whether two values are equal using the double equals sign. So the way to check if two values are equal is to use the double equals sign. Else and elif are both optional statements in a conditional. So you can simply have a statement with if and nothing else. If something is true, do this and then move on. Elif is shortened from else if. Now the way to write this exact same piece of code in another way is to use multiple long nested chains of if statements. So if something has happened, do this, else, and then nest another if statement below that. Now, in Python, as you know, nesting requires indentation. So if you have to write long chains of nested ifs with excessive indentation, you're likely to make an error. So elif can be used in place of else if to prevent these excessive nested indentations. None is a special value in Python. None is used for a value that does not exist. Before the user's input is taken in, the value of the variable will be none. So let's say you take a variable for which you have not assigned any value and try to print it. It will not print anything. And if you say what is the type of this variable, ask Python to print the type of the variable, it will print none. So you can test if a variable is none. Say for example, if you want to do something only if a particular variable exists or has some value, and then execute some code. None is neither true nor false. It's just none. So you cannot test whether something is equal to none. None is a lot like null in SQL. So in SQL, if you have used it before, you would say is null or is not null. Take a look at these none tests. The first says if value not equal to none, if not val is none, and if val is not none. If val is not none is the preferred option. We always test for none using is none and is not none. So different types of variables have different ways in which you define the equality and existence of that variable. So for none, equality is basically tested using is none or is not none. In is a special keyword in Python. Python has very intuitive ways for you to test if a value is in a dictionary or a list. So if you want to test whether a value exists in a list or a dictionary, you can do it in a very simple manner using the in keyword. Here is an example from Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is an amazing website where you can post questions and receive answers to them about coding problems, and many problems have already been solved over there. Just look for an answer on Stack Overflow. It's most likely that you will find it. So here is the first method. that this person has tried to check if a value exists in a dictionary or not. It's a pretty complicated method. There's an if statement which checks if the count of the value 7 is exactly 1 in that list, and if it is 1, then find the position of the value 7 in that list. Another complicated method to do the same thing. Here the person has enclosed that statement inside a try except block. So try to find the position of the value 7, and if there is a value error, then fall into the except block. So this is a roundabout way of checking whether a value is in a list or not, by seeing if an exception is thrown when you try to find the position of the value in that list. So here is a directly simple method. Just say if that value is in that list, if 7 in A, then do whatever you need it to do when this condition is satisfied. Simply use the in keyword instead of using a complicated if statement or a try except block. So this is a pretty cool example from Stack Overflow which shows us how useful the in keyword is. Stack Overflow can be your best friend when you are programming. Even experienced, seasoned programmers go to Stack Overflow when they're looking for answers to problems that they haven't encountered before. One last little note. We have seen the if statement and if elif or if elif else. All of these basically test whether some condition is true or false. Now, you can actually have them test for multiple conditions or a combination of different conditions. If this is true and something else is true, or if at least one of a set of conditions is satisfied, or if none of the conditions is satisfied. So these multiple conditions can be linked to each other using the keywords and or not.